Welcome to the lecture on network analysis module 2. In this module, we will first determine the total float and free float of activities for an example. We will then discuss CPM model with time cost optimization. As time can be saved by adding additional resources, we analyze time and cost of activity by considering time cost trade-offs. Let us determine the float and free floats of activities. For this, we consider an example. A project has the following time cost information. There are few activities 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 4, 3, 5 and 4, 9 activities, and also there are activities 5, 6, 5, 7, 6, 8, 7, 8, 8, 10 and 9, 10, and their times are given in the slide. We have to construct a network diagram and find the critical path and the total project duration first, and then we have to find the total float and free float for each activity. Now, this diagram shown in the slide shows that the critical path is 1, 3, 5, 7, 8 and 10, and this critical path is obtained from the computations, backward pass computation and forward pass computation, and as you can see that EI equal to LI for all the events lying in the path 1, 3, 5, 7, 8 and 10. Therefore, the activities 1, 3, 3, 5, 5, 7, 7, 8 and 8, 10 are called critical. That means any delay in any of the activity will delay the completion of the project. Now, calculation for the total and free floats are shown in the following table. In the first column, we list the activities. In the second one, we give the duration of each activities, and then we calculate the earliest start time and finish time, and then latest start time and finish time, and finally total float and free float. From the figure already shown in the previous slide, we can easily write the values of EI and LI, and from that we can find the values of EJ and LJ. So, total float can be obtained by taking the difference between LJ and EJ, which can be easily obtained. And to calculate the free float, we have to check the network diagram again. You see that for the float, free float, to determine the free float of the activities 3, 4, the activity time is 1 and its predecessor activities time is also 1, whereas the occurrence time of the event E4 equal to 5. That means the free float for the activity 3, 4 is 3. That means if we delay the activity 3, 4 by 3 units of time, there will be no harm in the starting of the successor activity 4, 9. Thus, the free float for the activity 3, 4 is equal to 3. Similarly, we calculate the free float for the other activities. Free floats for the other activities are 0 except the activities 3, 4, 6, 8 and 9, 10. Now, we proceed to discuss CPM model with time cost optimization. CPM employs the basic networking fundamentals, the operational network, the critical path or paths and slack paths. Two time estimates with associated cost are made for each activity, a normal time and a crash time. A normal time reflects typical condition or normal condition, whereas a crash time reflects stepped up condition. The prime objective is that the time can be saved by applying added resources at any increased cost. The time and cost for each activity therefore need to be analyzed in terms of time cost trade off. Now, let me first define what do you mean by a time cost relationship. Usually, a time cost relationship is nonlinear in nature. A typical nonlinear time cost curve can be approximated by a linear curve as shown in the left hand side figure in the slide. The linear approximation infers an increase in cost for unit reduction in time. However, there are situations where actual cost curve differs from linearity. In this case, a piecewise linear approximation can be used as shown in the right hand figure of the slide. With a crash cost Cc, a normal cost Cn, a crash time Tc and a normal time Tn, the incremental cost Ic of crashing an activity is given by the slope Ic equal to delta C by delta T, which is equal to Cc minus Cn by Tn minus Tc. In effect, the incremental cost represents the cost increase per unit of time decrease. The following table contains the information for a representative project. The first column shows the activities and the second column shows the normal times of the activities and the third column shows the crash times of the activities. All these times are presented in weeks, and the fourth and fifth column show the normal cost and crash costs. So, from this data we can calculate delta T and delta C, and finally, in the last column we can calculate Ic, which is equal to delta C by delta T. Now, this figure shows the network with time and cost. The upper figure of each activity shows the crash time and normal time. So, the activity 1, 2, the crash time is 3 weeks and normal time is 6 weeks, and the lower figure 5, 4 indicates the crash cost and normal cost in thousands rupees. Emphasizing on the cost of crashing of an activity, this figure represents the network with incremental expenditure or incremental expediting cost. For the activity 1, 2, we have incremental cost is rupees 333 for 1 unit reduction of time. Similarly, for the other activities as shown in this slide. Now, this figure shows the normal time schedule, that is, if we consider the normal time, then from forward pass computation and backward pass computation, we can find the critical path, which is 1, 2, 4, 5 and 7, and the normal time schedule T D equal to 26, whereas the total cost is 31,000. Total cost is simply the cost for all activities. Now, if we consider the crash time instead of the normal time, then proceeding similarly as in the previous case, from forward pass computation as well as backward pass computation, we can find the critical path 1, 2, 4, 5, 7 the same critical path, but the schedule time here T D equal to 15 and the total cost of the project is 54,000. Here in the figure we see that the path 1, 3, 4 has a slack of 4 weeks and the path non-critical path 4, 6, 7 has a slack of 2 weeks, and there is another non-critical path which is the activity 2, 5, and there is also a slack of 8 weeks. We were discussing the CPM model with time cost optimization. We have seen that if we consider the normal activity time, then we are getting the schedule with lowest cost, but longest duration of the project. And if we consider the crash time of each activity, then we are getting the lowest duration of the project, but highest cost. We now proceed to derive a compromise solution of these two extreme alternatives. We have seen that the normal time schedule gives the lowest cost, that is 31,000, and the longest duration, that is 26 weeks, whereas the crash time schedule gives highest cost, that is 54,000, and the shortest duration, that is 15 weeks. These extremes can be compromised into other scheduling alternatives. First one is time reduction in normal time schedule by crashing activities on the critical path, and number 2, cost reduction of the crash time schedule by uncrashing some activities. Now, we consider the least cost crash time schedule. The crash time schedule provides 15 weeks duration of the project with a cost of rupees 54,000. The schedule can be substantially improved without increasing the completion time, that is 15 weeks. Activities that need not be expensively crashed should be assigned low cost normal times. To maintain 15 weeks duration of the project, the activities on the critical path remains crashed. So, activities on the non-critical paths can be extended by the amount of associated slack without affecting the duration of the project. Now, first consider the non-critical path 2-5. It is crashed to 3 units of time with a cost of 6,000. The activity has 8 weeks of slack. The duration can be increased by 8 weeks before the project completion date will be affected, but there is no reason to increase the activity time for the activity 2-5 to by 8 units, because the normal time of the activity 2-5 is 5 units. Therefore, we can extend the activity time of the activity 2-5 to 5 units, and then the cost is rupees 3,000 for the normal time. Hence, for this we can save rupees 3,000. Now, consider the other non-critical path 1-3-4. This path has a slack of 4 units of time. Therefore, the activity 1-3 and 3-4 can be expanded. For every week expansion of the activity 1-3, we can save 500 rupees, and for every week expansion of the activity 3-4, we can save 667 rupees. Since the expansion of the activity time in the activity 3-4 is more beneficial, so we can expand the activity time of the activity 3-4 as much as possible. Since the normal time of the activity 3-4 is 5 weeks, therefore, we can expand it up to 5 weeks. That is, we expand the activity time of the activity 3-4 by 3 units. Then the remaining 1 unit slack can be used for expansion of the activity 1-3. So, ultimately the activity time for the activity 1-3 will be 3 and the activity time for the activity 3, 4 will be 5 and then there will be no slack. This indicates that the path 1, 3, 4 will also be a part of the critical path. Therefore, in this case we can save in total 2,500 rupees. Now, we consider the another critical non-critical path 4, 6, 7 in which the slack is 2 units of time. So, the cost saving in the activity 4, 6 is 1,500 and the cost saving in the activity 6, 7 is 2,000. Since the cost saving in the activity 6, 7 is more, so we will try to relax or extend the activity time of the activity 6, 7 as much as possible. Here we could extend the activity time of the activity 6, 7 by 1 unit only and then the remaining 1 unit will be used to extend the activity time for the activity 4, 6 and in this case the total saving will be 2,000 plus 1,500 which is equal to 3,500 and the path 4, 6, 7 will again be a part of the critical path. This figure shows the least cost crash time schedule which is of duration 15 weeks and the total cost is 45,000. Here we see that instead of a single critical path, we are getting multiple critical paths, but the length of the critical path remains the same which is 15 weeks and for this crash time schedule we have the cost 45,000. We were discussing the compromise solution between the normal schedule and the crash schedule. In the normal schedule, we have seen that the schedule duration was 26 weeks, whereas the cost was only rupees 31,000. In the crash schedule, we have seen that the duration reduced to 15 weeks, whereas the cost increased to 54,000. But we have seen that in the compromise solution, that is the least cost crash time schedule, the duration we keep remain as 15 weeks, but we are able to reduce the cost to 45,000. Thus, compromise solution may be acceptable than the two extreme solutions, that is the normal time schedule solution and crash time schedule solution. Now, we proceed to discuss least cost intermediate time schedule. In most situations, the project planners will not contend with the extreme specified by normal time schedule or least cost crash time schedule. They may want some intermediate position between a low cost long duration and a high cost short duration. A compromise can be made between time and cost in a least cost intermediate time schedule. Here we will start with the normal cost schedule and progressively reduce the project duration by crashing activities at an increase in cost. The normal time schedule is a least cost schedule with a duration of 26 weeks. Let us think of reducing the duration by 2 weeks. As shortening duration of non-critical activities will not reduce the project completion time, we must shorten the critical path by 2 weeks. The cost of crashing critical path activities are given below. The incremental cost of crashing activity 1 2 is rupees 333.3. Similarly, the incremental costs of crashing activity 2 4, 4 5 and 5 7 are respectively rupees 1000, 1667 and 1000 respectively. Here activity 1 2 is the most economic choice, therefore, it can be shortened by 2 weeks at an increased cost of rupees 667. This figure shows the normal time schedule, where the activity duration time for the activity 1 2 is 6, and we would like to reduce it by 2 units, and this figure shows the least cost intermediate time schedule, where the duration of the project is 24 weeks, and the total cost now becomes 31,667. Let us now consider the project duration of 23 weeks. That means, we want to reduce the duration of the project by 1 week. Since A12 is giving the lowest crashing cost of rupees 333.3, we will reduce the activity time of activity 1 2 by an additional week. However, we will not be able to reduce the duration of the project by doing so, as activity 1 3 and activity 3 4 are part of a parallel critical path, which must be considered at the same time. So, to reduce the duration of the project, it is necessary to crash an activity on both the parallel lines. The total incremental cost of crashing the activities 1 3 and 1 2 is rupees 833.3. The activities 1 2 and 3 4 is rupees 1000. The activities 2 4 and 1 3 is rupees 1500, and the activities 2 4 and 3 4 is rupees 1667. This figure shows that the crashing of activities 1 2 and 1 3 is the most economic choice. Therefore, we reduce the activity time of the activity 1 2 by 1 unit, which is now 3 units. The star indicates that it has already reached to the normal time, so further reduction is not possible, and the activity duration time of the activity 1 3 now becomes 5, and in this case the cost becomes 32,500, whereas the total duration of the time becomes 23 weeks. Now, A12 is already fully crashed, as I mentioned, it cannot be reduced further. So, to further reduce the project duration, the alternatives are to be considered as shown in the slide. Activity 2 4 and 1 3, activities 2 4 and 3 4, activity 4 5 and activity 5 7. Among these alternatives, the activity 5.7 gives the most benefit. Therefore, A57, that is the activity 5.7 can be reduced by 3 weeks. Then the least cost intermediate time schedule will reduce to 20 units and the total cost raises to rupees 35,500. Now, we can further proceed to reduce the project duration time by 2 units, that is when the project duration time is 18 weeks, the total cost becomes 38,500. Similarly, we can proceed to get the least cost intermediate time schedule of project duration 16 weeks, then the total cost becomes 41,833. And finally, the least cost intermediate time schedule having project duration 15 weeks, we get the total cost as 45,000. In this module, we have discussed CPM model with time cost optimization. We have determined the normal time schedule, crash time schedule, least cost crash time schedule, and as a compromise solution, least cost intermediate time schedule. Among these 4 schedules, the last one may be accepted by many project managers in practice. With this comment, we end this module.